Hanji, Sat Shri Akal, and welcome to another episode of the Not in the Clouds podcast. You're here, joined. Welcome, Asa Singh Ji, Jawan Singh Ji. How are you? What have you guys been consuming, reading, eating?
I've been watching the Euros.
Yeah.
England won the first game. Watched Germany today. Yeah, slow burners, but I think,
Without sounding like a therapist, when England play, how does it make you feel?
Well, I have no feeling. It's more like I live in England, so I want them to do well. But I have a friend who's convinced, and maybe it's a superstition, that if he's not watching it, then they're not going to win. He's got his lucky kashera and everything.
It's one of those things where it's really, really good to watch. Like, we were watching the Euros. I don't watch the Champions League or any of the other leagues, right? But when you watch the Euros, the quality of the football, now, I mean, me and Nina were comparing this, because we also watch cricket. So we watch the T20 World Cup, which is going on at the same time. I find cricket's actually boring to watch.
It's interesting. Like cricket, they're bowling so quickly, and there's an element of muscle memory, which is impressive. Because the batsman must have made up his mind as to what shot he wants to play before he's got that ball delivered to him, or it's like a split second decision that if the ball, and it's all happening subconsciously, right? Which shot to play. I find that's incredible. So I enjoy playing cricket more than watching it.
Jawan Singh Ji, do you play any sports?
Play any sports? I used to. Yeah, I used to be big into sports. I used to love athletics, high jump, long jump, basketball. I used to just love sports in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't play any now.
Tennis as well, right?
I used to love playing tennis. Used to love playing hockey as well. I was just big into sports.
Yeah.
I think deep down, I like the strategy aspect of it. It relates to other things like chess, but I don't know how to play chess to save my life. There's this guy on YouTube, his name's Gary Economics. And and I've gone into this rabbit hole of trying to understand it.
As Gary Economics.
No, he's probably just Gary, yeah. He's just Gary. And fun fact, he went to the same school as Rajesh, so you take that as you will. He has these interesting theories on the economy. He used to be like the Citibank trader. Yeah. And it's just because the elections are going, so I started to look into it.
You guys all voting?
No?
Come on. Gotta vote for somebody.
Why? Why do you have to vote for somebody?
It's your right.
With the current state of affairs, and everything that we're hearing now, like one thing that stuck out to me is the rising of the state pension. So the state pension will be taxed.
Why do we need to worry about something that's going to happen in 30 years' time?
I don't think worry is not the right word.
Strategically planning. But for those who are living hand to mouth now at the age of 25, 30, 35, 40, when they get to that age, when they actually think, okay, I've been putting a little bit away.
So would you not then recommend that they go out and vote for a policy that makes it better for them?
I get what you're saying. However, I mean, look, half of the Conservatives used to be Labour, and half of the Labour used to be Conservatives, so they're all swapping teams anyway. Jawan Singh Ji, you're in Uxbridge, aren't you?
Yeah, my mum
voting Boris.
Boris.
I'm gonna vote. If I was in Uxbridge, I would have voted for Count Binface. Have you guys heard of Count
He's
Binface?
probably good.
He's such a troll, and that's the only reason why I like him, because he's a troll. It's like I watched the Keir Starmer versus Sunak, the first one, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I felt that Rishi Sunak came across well. Like, he spoke well.
I guess what he was saying is, as a nation, what we've been kind of trained to do is treat politics like football. And the party that you support it like a football team.
Yeah.
Now, Paji, what have you been consuming this week? We haven't even asked you yet.
I have started watching this program called Buying London, and this is going back into that political thing, because I was just thinking, how expensive are properties, man? It's nuts. A real estate agent, but he deals with the high-end properties in London. How much have they inflated over time? I mean, you get loads of nice house ideas, and there's loads of funky stuff in there. Like the Beatles house was in there, and that was pretty cool. And it had round walls. That's it. However, we shall segue into the main topic this week. And the topic this week is acceptance. What is acceptance? what we understand of acceptance, and why do we need to accept anything in this world? Asa Singh.
This is the bit where I say something stupid and then Juan comes in with the intellectual perspective of it. So let's cut to Juan the first.
Oh, I'm an overthinker. Like, I think about things from angles that, like, if somebody actually could see what angles I was trying to figure things out from, they'd think I'm insane. So maybe, yeah, that has some benefits, but a lot of negatives as well. But yeah, just simply like when I was looking at it, when we was talking about acceptance and kind of what some people call destiny or what is preordained, the kind of word that came to mind was Parna. And when we look at Parna, I was looking at Mahan Ghosh, and he put it simply as Kartar dejo hukm hai, like the commands of the Creator. But then he also gave other meanings to it, which is what your ichama are. Like what actually do you want? And actually that made sense to me, because there's a conflict that goes within us, I think, every day, which is one side is what we want. And when we get that, we don't think of acceptance in those scenarios, right? When things are going our way, we're never thinking of acceptance because things are going our way. But when things don't go our way, then all of a sudden we start thinking about what is preordained and acceptance. So I thought, let's open that up a little bit.
There's a Shabad from Bhagat Kabirji. They're like, don't live in this expectation that you're going to go to heaven, and don't be afraid of living in hell. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. Instead, focus on the moment, focus on the present, and sing, well, Bhagat Kabirji says, sing the appreciation of the Almighty.
We're talking about the praise of the Almighty here, but even if you are in, a somewhat somber mood, and somebody puts on some jazz music, or somebody puts on some pop music, or how does that music affect your mind state?
We're talking about the beat, right? That if, we know when we're listening to music, if something is offbeat, for whatever reason, it just doesn't feel right, and we don't enjoy it, right? And maybe that's an element of when we're talking about Parna, is there's this mismatch within our brain, is where we think something is going on beat, when according to our mindset we think it's going off beat, then all of a sudden we don't like it. But maybe it is going on beat, but we just haven't realized it. You were doing something that you thought was going to be correct. Apna parna tum karaho. You walked in accordance to your own ichama, and due to your ignorance maybe, where you're going offbeat, but you're thinking it's on beat, but it's actually offbeat. And you're realizing that I want to tune myself. Like before we start any kirtan, you tune your instrument. I want to tune this body of mine, this instrument that Akal Purkh has given me. I want to tune that so I can use it to, for one, its full potential, and two, so I can realize the true beat. When we try and understand the world in terms of this is what's happened in my past and this is what I expect from the future, I think we lose the present. And then when we lose the present, it's very difficult, I think, to reconcile that within our human mind. And then that's when we struggle in life, and we struggle to accept things. I think when I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, when I am not happy with the result of something, it's either one, I've attached myself to the outcome of something, like I did something and I expected a certain outcome, or something didn't happen according to what I wanted.
We think we're player number one in this game of life, but in reality we're NPCs.
What's the NPC?
NPC is a non-playable character. Where, like if you've ever played a game and like the people in the background sort of just there.
I think Sanashan Singh ji gave a Sakhi Praman of this kind of example, where Narad Muni, he's traveling and he's going to do Narayan's darshan. On his travels, he meets this Buzurg Sadhu, and the Buzurg Sadhu is sitting under his tree where he's doing his meditation. And he goes, asks the Sadhu, and he says, I'm going to do the darshan of Narayan. Is there any request you want me to put at the lotus charan of Narayan? And the sadhu says, when will I achieve mukti? And then he goes to meet this other sadhu, and he's a younger sadhu. And the young sadhu, he's sitting there and he's doing his meditation, and Narayan Narada Muniji asks him that, what do you have any requests? He thought, I've asked the Buzurg Sadhu, let me ask the Jawan Sadhu. And he says, Narayan da sava kuch detta hoya hai, ke I don't need anything else. Narad Muni goes to Narayan and puts the request of both the sadhus. First he meets the Buzurg Sadhu, and the Buzurg Sadhu asks, what was the response? And he says the response is this, that how many leaves are on this tree? You will have to go through this many lives and then you will become mukta. And the sadhu took his rudraksh and just threw it on the floor. He took his mala, threw it on the floor. He says, I've been doing all of this my whole life. I've had enough. I can't even count how many leaves there are on the tree. Forget it. Like, he fully gives up. He's like, he pissed off. He's like, I'm not doing it. He's like, forget it. And then he goes to the Jawan Sadhu, and Narad Muni ji says the same thing, that Tardilivi hukuma, like the will of your Lord is that how many leaves are on this tree after you've gone through that many life forms, then you will achieve mukti. Then that Jawan Sadhu, he starts dancing in joy that my beloved has actually preordained the date that I will attain mukti. Like, what an amazing thing that my Lord has done for me, that they have actually preordained that date. This puts so much like alleviation on my mind. And out of that joy, out of that pure bliss, it says just in that moment, because of that pure bliss, he achieved Brahmagyan in that moment, just due to that joy.
That first sadhu who spent however many years doing bhakti, he chose to stop because he thought, well, what's the point? Was that preordained?
There could be one person, they spend their whole life reading Gurbani and doing Nam Simran. But during their day-to-day life, like your dealings with other people. And what we don't realize is from our own perspective, that person has done a lot of Nam Simran and a lot of read a lot of Barney. But really, due to their dealings and because of their nature, because of the virtues that they adopted, daily we were doing it and then putting it down the drain. Panda pao amrita teta tal. Meaning that when that vessel is ready, it needs to be of a certain quality for then that amrit to actually be able to hold it. And I think that Jawan Sadhu, he had adopted the virtues that made him ready to handle it. Really, for both of them, the opportunity was there.
But it's also perspective there, right? So that it doesn't matter. I think the age is not considered in this act.
How do we change our perspective to be like that young sadhu, where irrespective of the end result of our life, we're still carefree and don't care about the pension being taxed? To be able to accept or to be in that frame of mind, there has to be an element of devotion. I don't think, like if we take Guru Arjan Dev Ji for example, in Shabda Jare they write, Jiya Jant Sab Saran Tumari, one recognition that everybody falls under your umbrella, regardless of whether I like them or not. They all fall under your shelter. Jiya Jant Sab Saran Tumari, Sarb Chintat Base, and that you care and worry for everyone. Jotu the Pava, Soi Changa, Ek Nanak Ki Ardase. This is my prayer, that whatever you feel is in the best interest of the ones that, of everybody that you've taken under your shelter, let me accept that.
For society to run, we have to have faith in an ultimate judge. Otherwise, in one scenario, Sarapaji, you tell me that this thing is wrong. And based on my subjective opinion, this thing is wrong. And then Asapaji, you'll come and say, well, no, but based on my tarka, that thing what you said is correct. What is the thing, what is the ultimate thing that is going to decide who was right and who was wrong?
So then it is then the perspective that regardless of what's happening, we shouldn't have a judgment on it.
We shouldn't be worried about the judgment on it because we know there's an ultimate judge. And that is the acceptance. That's why Sachipai is saying, Asankha Muraka Andakor, Asankha Chora Ramkhor. Here, that's why Sachipachi is talking about these kind of Rajasi gun elements or Tamasi gun elements of the world. Sirje Dano Devate, Tina Andar Badra Chaya. Meaning that Sirje Dano Devate. Meaning that the Creator themselves created the strife between For an oversimplification, so we can understand it from an English perspective, they created the strife between good and bad, or positive and negative.
There was a news story that came out of Norway. I've been struggling to find it since I initially read about it. This was a couple of years ago. Essentially, this one guy, he was a far-right extremist, and he stopped a school bus of children, and essentially one by one killed every single one of them. And imagine like the pain and the suffering that the families would have gone through, and there were children, so it affected the whole community of the whole country. This guy's obviously caught, taken to trial, and he pleads guilty. And I think when he's asked why he did it, it was something about being a neo-Nazi or something along those lines, far-right extremist. But that situation, how does somebody digest that? Is it like we were talking about it in a few episodes ago, that it's just one snapshot in a larger film, so you can't judge that one snapshot because you don't know what the frames before had been?
Anybody that is thinking from a dharmic perspective, they can never accept that. Judgment, it comes in different ways, I think. Sometimes what we say is judges, we think we're the ultimate judge. That we've judged that person to be bad. Like, who are we to judge, really? Like, ultimately. Even if we do judge that person, we're only going to judge them based on what we've been taught by a guru. And it's only because our guru has taught us this is right and this is wrong, therefore we have a yardstick. The rest is what is our anubhav. And we know our anubhav is terrible. But essentially there's two Sikhs, and the two Sikhs, they're arguing with each other. And because one Sikh has taken money from the other Sikh, and the Sikh that's taken the money says, I'm not going to give you the money back. There's a lot more details that I've really simplified it, but when the Sikh goes back and because he's singing, he says, why aren't you asking him to give the money back? Go and tell him a bit strongly to give your money back. The Sikh says, well, but it's the Guru's teachings that if you take somebody's money and don't give it back, that's bigger than being a thief. You're Vishwasghati, which is the biggest sin. And he's saying, I am the Sikh of the Guru. I'm not going to even have to go in front of Dharmaraj. Right?
Straight bypass.
Yeah, I'm going to bypass it. So I don't care. You're telling me I'm doing wrong. I'm right. I don't care. And Sadhguruji is hearing this. Guru Gobind Singh Ji has overheard all of this. And Sadhguruji, they're standing in the Anandpur Killa. And Sadhguruji replies from the top saying, Hak paraya nanaka, us sur us gai, gur pir hamma ta pare, ja murdar na khai. That the Guru will only stand next to you if you don't eat murdar, which to the direct translation is if you don't eat dead carcasses. But in that bodily, dead carcasses means that if you don't take the possessions of others. Like you should treat the possessions of others as if it's a dead carcass, like meaning that's how much you should be revolted by it, kind of thing.
On similar lines, there's a story of a farmer, Baba Buddhaji. I think, I'm not sure which band they're from, but essentially as they're farming, they would do Nam Simran as they would be farming, as like working on the farm. It got to a point where they're farming and some thieves have come into their land and stolen their crop, and they've seen this happen. And obviously in that moment, trying to do something about it, have gotten themselves beaten up, and beaten up quite badly, and to the point that they're not able to walk anymore. So they've got broken legs, and their family are kind of putting pressure on them. Look, you know who did it. Why don't you file a complaint with the police? And like when we like you were saying, John, somebody that's a bhagat and somebody that's in love with their murshid, the Akal Purakh, their response was, I used to walk and do Nam Simran, but my beloved wanted me to sit down and do it. So they never took it up with the police. They were like, this is it.
It's the same as Baba Jassa Singh Ji, same exact example. Like they would plant their field. Those that don't know, Baba Jassa Singh Ji is Guru Ram Singh Ji's father. And Baba Jassa Singh Ji, when it gives the history of what he was like as a person, it says that he would go plant his field and he would never go and check on the status of the field. Like, do I need to water it, or do I need to do like put fertilizer or anything? He would never go check it. Mata Sadakaur Ji, they would get annoyed. Like, And okay, why don't you go and check the field? And Baba Jassa Singh ji, and they would never go check. And there's even another example. It says the kind of hay that would be tied up there, that was there for the different animals for their feed, it would be tied up into bundles. And Baba Jassa Singh ji was just walking, and they were covered with the kind of blanket because it was the cold season. And in the morning, generally in the villages, it's quite cold in the dark. And when he was walking, he saw the person picking up his possessions. He's gone and helped them pick it up. He's gone there, helped them pick it up, and I think this is the unique, and this again, it goes back to devotion. I don't think you can have this way of being, this unique nature, without being a devotee of like Paji was saying, your murshid or your creator or your guru. I think it gives you a unique personality, tying your mind to that. To your that one place where you direct your worship. I think it changes who you are as a person. And I think the person who was there previously, I think that person dies, and what is put in its place is something that's very unique, and even the way they think is very unique.
I don't want this to come across as preachy, because I've seen so many instances where people are suffering and they can't accept their current position in life. We're like, how can this have happened to me? And all of these stories, and there are so many more. Like, if you want to look at acceptance, you don't have to look further than Guru Gobind Singh Ji, or even more recently during Sadhguru Pratap Singh Ji's time, Mata Dani Ji. And maybe a lot of people can't relate to Mata Dani Ji losing their son, who was killed by a family member who she knew, right? But even still accepting that, and she was never angry at this family for doing it. She was like, look, we got later. Like, one passed away, I've got thousands more sons. Maybe that's not relatable because we've not lost a son like that. But it's a metaphor, right, for how somebody can be how it's possible that somebody can be in love with Raja, Hukam, or the Almighty, so much so that none of these things make a difference anymore.
The opposite of devotion is separation. When you're separated from that one path and the eternal, then you lose devotion. But the more you go on the spectrum to devotion, you forget the path of separation, and you actually separate yourself from your identity. The same thing that, Jawand gives the example of, I am Jawand. But if I say, this is hand, this is arm, this is chest, this is whatever, that's not Jawand though, is it? Or that's not Sadab. That is just the body part, essentially. It's the same way you detach yourself from thinking that you are something, and you attach yourself to the eternal.
And it's like maybe the eternal is too abstract. It was something Satyabhashaji said in their previous Updesh, where, using words like beloved or pyare, mere Prabhu, and like there's a Gurbani book along the lines of Sukh Dukh Teri Agya Pyare, ki whether I'm living a content or comfortable life right now, or whether I'm at the mercy of the elements, but it's still through your Agya Pyare. That word pyare being like the pivotal word for me in that sentence, in that book.
It's quite common that people on their trucks and their cars in India,
that's a perfect one.
Yeah, they write "Ehe Pedat Teri Datar," and Jatidarji says, if I told them the line before that, they would all go and remove it from their cars. Ketya dukh pukh sadmar.
Very tough. Very tough.
Pedat Teri Datar. Bhai Gurdas Ji, we all know how knowledgeable they were and how loved they were by Guru Arjan Dev Pasha Ji and by Guru Har Gobind Pasha Ji. And in one of their Vara, they write, Jai Gur Sang Vartada Sikh Sidka Na Hare, meaning that when the Guru puts a test on you, that you should never lose your faith. The true Sikh will never lose their faith if the Guru decides to test them. Guru Satyapasha finds out that this is what Bhai Gurdas Ji is saying, and Satyapasha Ji says to the Sikhs, "Ke Bhai ji de vich eh jaapda ke sukham home da koi kanta reh gaya vich," meaning that there's a very thin layer of home that's left in Bhai Gurdas Ji. And Sadhguru Ji gives him a bag of gold coins and sends him to Kabul. and says, Sachipashi wanted to get these good quality horses. Said, go there and buy these 2 horses. When he gets there, he does the deal. Then he says, okay, I'll inspect the horses. He inspects the horses, he's pleased, and then he goes into the tent to do the deal. When he goes into the tent, he opens the bag where he thinks there's going to be gold coins. When he opens it, all he sees is pebbles. And he opens it and he says, mere naal ki hoya? And he opens the back of the tent and he just runs. He legs it because he thinks, I'm going to get embarrassed and I don't have any money. And he runs all the way to Banaras. And there was a king, and the king was a devotee of Sadhguruji, and the king actually then employs him to teach his subjects about Sikhi, and there he gets a lot of following. And what he ends up finding out is that when the 2 dealers went into the tent, when they opened the same bag, it was filled with gold coins. It wasn't filled with the pebbles. It's only what he saw. No param pੈ ਗਿਆ ਸੀ ਜਾਂ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੇ ਖੇਡ ਵਰਤਾਈ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਜੀ was testing the Sikh. Sachche Pashi sends Gursikhs to say, where is Bhai Gurdas ji? Go get him. And they bring him. Or we both that's a longer kind of story of then how he comes back. But when he comes back and after that he changes it. And in the next var he writes, Jai Gur Sang Vartada Sikh kya kare bechara. If the Guru decides to test me, what is the bechara Sikh gonna do? and this is how the Guru helped his Gursikhs reach a high level of spiritual understanding.
The summary of that is fall in love if you want to have some level of acceptance.
But what about some practical things? What do you think practically we could do?
Go on, Saram. You're the practical man.
This is hard for me because everything is very logical, right? So for me, in my mind, if something doesn't happen, then it just doesn't happen. Or if something's not worked out the way that I would have liked it to work out, my natural thing is to say, Chalo, let's move on to the next thing, or let's, try and work it out or break it down. And that doesn't always work. So if someone was to I've not had anyone near to me pass away, for example, or I've had no one near to me go through something, really rough. So I've never had to actually delve deep to think about it. But one thing that I find is if you just take each breath as it comes, and if you walk with each step as they come, I think that essentially helps me to understand that, we don't know whether we're going to take the next step. We don't know whether we're going to take the next breath. And as simple as it is, that's what when we started talking about, okay, what is acceptance? Well, acceptance doesn't necessarily mean that you accept everything and you don't, like Jawan Singh Ji was saying earlier on, like Asa Singh Ji was saying earlier on, if you've got a plate and the roti, the prashada's there, the dal, the paja's there, it's not going to go into your mouth without you eating it, right? And this argument has come up many times, but essentially, where are you going with that? Essentially, we got to accept that you have to take a step, that charan saran gur ek paida chahe chal, Sadhguru kot paida aage hoye leta hai. And the same way that Sachpashi takes thousands of steps to bring you forward. Asa Singh Ji, you've sent us a video.
Yeah. I think watch the video because it will.
Yeah, I've seen it.
You've seen it.
One second.
John Singh, this is Asa being pure Asa right now.
No, it links to the topic that was discussed.
No, man.
It does, I promise.
Oh, I've seen this. I've seen it.
So this woman,
I thought she was faking it.
Yeah, it's a real. For the people that don't know what we're talking about, this is a condition called foreign accent syndrome, and this lady, this lady was rushed into hospital because she had a migraine, and then she woke up having a Chinese accent. And
She had a stroke, isn't it? No, she had a stroke. She had a stroke, not just a migraine. She had a full stroke. Don't just blame it on a migraine.
stroke, okay. So she has whatever, right? She wakes up with foreign accent syndrome.
Hello.
How could that even happen? That's mad. Like, your brain went to a place of pure stereotypes and racism and made that your default.
One. This is probably a case for like reincarnation, right? So she's probably Chinese in her last life, and the way that this relates to today's topic is after about 6 or 7 months, she was like, I just have to accept the fact that now I have a Chinese accent.
I don't think she had a choice. But I've watched that video. She starts going to speech therapy as well, saying, "Let me take the edge off the accent so people can know what I'm saying." So she didn't
It's really
fully
sad.
accept
We
it.
shouldn't laugh. She might be watching this. I don't want to take the piss, but she's accepted the fact that now she has a Chinese accent.
But you're both going to struggle to accept what I'm about to say. So have you both played Super Mario?
Yes.
And like generally people think they're Italian, right? They're both like two Italian brothers. Yeah?
Plumbers. Yeah.
Yeah, two Italian plumbers. And at the start, when you start the game, what does he say? He says,
Luigi.
"It's me,
It's me."
Mario." Yeah. And I thought he was saying, "It's me, Mario." Saying, "It's me, Mario." I thought that was the introduction.
In an Italian accent.
Yeah, in an Italian accent. But he's not saying that. He's saying "Itsumi Mario," and "Itsumi" in Japanese means super. All he's saying is "Super Mario" to introduce the game. And I heard that recently. I was like, I cannot accept this.
Japanese because it Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't accept it. I was
Wow.
struggling with that one.
What has the largest population on Earth?
Woodlice.
Bacteria.
Lego mini features. Minifigures. Lego minifigures have the largest
I don't
population
accept
on
this
Earth.
as a fact.
No, there must be more ants and stuff, no?
I don't know. Apparently, Lego minifigures have the largest population on Earth.
Come on, man.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Do you have another one?
If you had a group of 23 people, yeah.
Very specific.
If you had a group of 23 people, there is a 50% chance that 2 people will share a birthday. Pretty cool. On that note, let's leave it there. Sat Sri Akal.